Okay, so we've got our short puff sleeve on the left hand side, and this is the sleeve pattern, so it's quite big, but it gathers up quite a lot. We'll have actual like thread gathering along the top edge here, and we'll have elastic along the bottom. So I've flipped over the sleeve, and I'm going to start the stitching for our gathering from the 2 notches at the back, because I want the gathers on this side so I can pull up the threads easily. So we start our stitching using the first line, so 6 millimeters from the edge, and then do a couple of back tacks. And I don't know if I said it, but I've taken the stitch length up to 4 on the dial here.
Yeah, so you want nice long stitches.
Yeah.
Easier to gather in. And Mark's done back tacks on one end so that you don't accidentally pull the thread out and then lose all of your gathering.
Yeah,
It's easy to do.
some people will leave a tail at each end and then wind it around like a pin to hold it in place, but I just find the back tack works fine for me.
No cutting off the thread this end, you want the tail so that you can pull
Oh,
on them.
exactly, yeah. So I've got those on either side. So then I go back, and then I do another foot width from the first row there.
So the idea with doing 2 rows of gathering is so that you can pull them up, and then the stitch line is actually in between those 2 rows of gathering.
So
And
yeah.
it just gathers it really, really well and evenly. And then eventually you'll be unpicking
Okay,
one of them.
so we've got the rows of stitching in position for when we get back to inserting the sleeve into the body.
Okay.
All right, so we've got our sleeve here, the right side facing up, and the right side facing up means that on our sleeve head we've got just the single notch here. Okay, so with that up, I've overlocked along the hem edge here, so this side facing up as it goes into the overlocker. Now we want to turn this into a casing, or it's really just like a 2 centimeter hem, but it's called a casing because it's going to have elastic going through it. So we flip the piece over with the wrong side facing up, and I'm just going to use my tape measure and turn this up to, where are we? 2 centimeters here, and I'm going to sew in between the edge and that first row of stitching there. And we did mention this earlier, the fact that you're not supposed to, or it's really hard to hem on a curve, and so that's why. Yeah, so I didn't show you that, but it actually drops down a little bit at the bottom, and you can see as I'm turning it up here, it's getting a little bit bunchy. But the thing is, I mean, if you end up with a tiny little tuck, it's not really a problem because this whole edge is going to be gathered anyway. So any little tucks or anything will be just, lost within the gathers.
Seems to be working now.
Yeah, I think.
It's not a lot extra, is it?
No. I think I dropped it maybe like 2 centimeters or something, and because the sleeve is quite wide as well. Okay, so now I'm going to put the elastic through now, so we just need
And you should have a pre-cut piece of elastic in your bag.
Yes.
And this length of the elastic's been calculated, so you would always, if you were trying to calculate it for a pattern you were doing and you're wanting to put it in production, you would test out a length, and if you needed to change it you would, and then you would record on the pattern the length of elastic that you cut for that particular application.
Yeah, exactly, for future reference.
Yeah.
So I've just put the end through the elastic and pulling this through. Now
Safety pin.
keep
So just get one off us.
yeah, and keep an eye to see what's happening, because there's nothing more boring than losing the end of the elastic.
We'll probably leave a safety pin over near the irons on little ledge or somewhere where you'll be able to grab them as you're making it.
Yep. So just bring the elastic down. We want to sew it in place. So have the edge of the elastic against the raw edge of the outer sleeve, and then we're just going to stitch that in place within the seam allowance there. Now that's secured, we can continue with the rest of our gathering.
You could probably do a slightly narrower casing there too.
Yes, I think on the first sample I made, I used a wider elastic. So yeah, so this probably would be a good width for maybe a centimetre or 1.5, yeah.
12 mil.
12 mil actually would be good, yeah.
The elastic that we're using is 6 millimetres wide.
And then just check to see that you don't have a twist in your elastic. Sometimes it can flip over when it goes along the way. And be careful at this point too. We have to take this out so we can sew through the end, but just make sure that you keep,
you don't lose the end.
you don't lose the end, otherwise
annoying, yeah.
you have to unpick that end and then
Or
try and pull it
sometimes put a
through,
pin in.
or
I'll pin it in to stop
Yeah.
that.
so just securing the other end. Okay, so now and then we can just give it a bit of a pull, and that'll make us some nice even gathers, although it has bunched up the ends a little bit. So what we're going to do now is sew the underarm. And I've done this the easy way by doing it like this. I mean, you can, if you really wanted to, you could sew the underarm first and then turn this back, but really the turn backs that I've done on the hem, you know, you couldn't actually do that. You have to sew it this way.
It would have to be a shaped pattern piece.
Yeah, but there
With extra fabric for the hem.
but there are other options for you to play around with. Okay, so I'm matching the finished edges here, and then at 1 centimetre.
Important to get those edges together. It'll look really bad if you don't.
Yeah. So 1 centimetre seam allowance. Okay, so I've sewn that now. I'm just going to overlock. So with the single notch end that has your gathering threads, that's going to be facing up. So I've overlocked the seam allowance here, and I've left myself a little tail. And so to finish this off, because we don't want, like on the finished garment, we don't really want this sort of flapping around on the inside. So what we want to do is we're going to pull that little bit of the overlocking upwards, and then just going to get in here, and we're going to
tucking that
tack this, tack this seam down in place. So on the outside there.
And in the same colour thread, you won't even notice that. And it
Yes.
just holds it flat.
So it just, so you can't see the end of the overlocking, it's tucked away. If you just chop the overlocking off here, you'll have little threads coming out, so, or it'll start to unravel. So that's why we tuck that bit underneath.